Welcome to another session with Sirus Migration with new updates, and we're here to answer any of the questions you may have. We missed the 4 o'clock session yesterday, so this is last week. So we're coming back to, as usual, on Thursday, 4 p.m. Welcome to our session again, and I'm a registered migration agent. My name is Isuru Yapa, and I've got Ashani Yapa right next to me. She's a registered migration agent as well. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the new updates with PMSOL, the BSMQ updates, and the state updates, and what new updates we've got from about business visas and 491 small business ownerships as well. So Ashani, you wanna?
Sure. Hello, my name is Ashani Yapa. I'm a registered migration agent. So we are coming to you again every Thursday from Brisbane. This is about Australian immigration, and we are trying to bring you the latest updates. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel, for our YouTube viewers, do subscribe, and we try our best to bring in the latest news for you. Well, there has been few updates. If we go to the state updates, currently Queensland state is currently closed for skilled migration, but they are open for business migration. When I say they are open, we can lodge an expression of interest, but you will not get a invitation until they receive the full quota. When we had our session with them last week, we were told that state government doesn't know when they will get their quota either, but they are hoping they will get something in a couple of weeks. And they said they have received over 400 invitations for business innovation and investment visa. So once they get their full allocation, they will be giving invitations. So if you are planning for business migration, subclass 188, 132, business innovation and investment, significant investment or premium investment, this is a good time for you to get your documents ready, because when the state opens, then you will be ready to lodge an EOI and receive an invitation. So with the skilled migration, Queensland is not open. And when we had our session with them, they didn't really tell us what the occupation list is going to look like. I don't think they know that yet either. They predicted that it could be something related to COVID-19 recovery. Same with New South Wales, they currently closed. And same with Victoria. But Western Australia, Northern Territory, and ACT, they are currently open with their limited list, the critical occupation list. And also South Australia is currently closed too, and we are hoping by mid to end December or January, all these states will open with their full allocation. So that is the quick state update for business and skilled visas.
So with 188A visa, 188 visas in relation to in regards to business visas, the EOIs can be applied even now. The only thing, they'll have to wait for the allocations to be announced before they can
give you an invitation.
So business visas continue to go, and they're talking about different system that they might implement in Queensland, right?
Yeah, so what happened in previous years, when the program gets closed when they fill up their quota for that financial year, and the next financial year, once they get their quota, when they open, there is a backlog of applications, and their applications exhaust pretty quickly. So to overcome this, BSMQ may come up with a system of issuing invitations for few rounds. So people throughout the year hopefully will get the opportunity to get an invitation from the state, which I think would be a really good idea, rather than, just a couple of months a year you get an invitation and the rest of the year you just have to wait for the system to open. So that's another change. And also Queensland government updates they are talking about subclass 491, small business owner pathway again, and they have mentioned few things. One is the business. If you're buying a business in Queensland in a regional area, then you are eligible to lodge this subclass 491 small business owner. You have to run this business for 6 months before you can lodge an EOI. So the few things that the government mentioned about this is, if you are planning for this, the minimum amount you have to spend on the business is $100,000. And they have clearly mentioned that the business purchase price doesn't have to be $100,000. It's the amount that you spend during the 6 months before you apply for the EOI on capital investments. So the money that you spend paying wages could not be included in there. But if you buy a machine, if it's a restaurant, if you buy a freezer, that's a capital investment, and you can count that towards your $100,000.
And also the renovations and
Yes.
anything to do with capital
investment.
So,
and also they did mention that as long as you legally acquired the funds, they don't really look at the source of funds. So it could be a present from your parents, a loan, borrowings from friends, could be your savings, could be anything, as long as the money is legally acquired, which is again a really good thing. And now the local borders are opening for New South Wales and Victoria. If our clients are in these states and they are looking into move to Queensland, would be a great time to invest into a business. There are great opportunities of businesses available as well, and the price is quite good these days. So it could be a good investment for clients looking into this pathway. And also they did mention that the business has to be at least running for 1 year before you buy the business. And the main applicant has to own the business 100%. And they have to they have to employ one Australian part-time, 20 hours a week. And for this purpose, this Australian has to be an Australian citizen, a permanent resident, or a New Zealand citizen. It cannot be an international student. It used to be you could hire an international student. Now it has changed. Has to be an Australian. Yeah.
And I guess I think we've spoken about this quite a few times, but we continue to get questions and inquiries about people getting confused between 491 small business ownership in comparison to 188 visas. So a lot of people ask, what's the difference? Is 491 small business owner category, permanent pathway, etc., etc. So 188 visa is for experienced businessmen or investors to come into Australia to own, operate, or invest in Australia. 491 visa is a bit different. 491 visa is for people who are already in Australia with full-time work rights and has a positive skill assessment for them to be able to migrate. This program is also only available in Queensland at the moment, apart from Tasmania, and South Australia is coming up with a similar system. It's not available at this stage,
yet,
right? Yeah.
Not yet in South Australia, but in Queensland, yes, it is.
So for 491, you have to go and buy a business, and you have to have that 2 criteria at that time. You need to have a full-time work rights and positive skill assessment, and then operate it in a regional area for at least 6 months before you can apply for expression of interest for 491 small business. And you need to have 50 points by your own. And but the thing is, you do not have to have the skill assessment doesn't have to relate to the business that you acquire. So acquiring the business, you need to spend minimum of $100,000, and that $100,000 doesn't have to be the amount that you spend. to acquire the business. It can be, as Ashani just explained, it can be partially spent in acquiring the business, and the rest can be your capital to operate the business, as in business improvements and etc. And then once you operate the business for a minimum of 3 years, then you can, once you have the 491 visa for 3 years, you can then apply for 191 permanent pathway. Should we?
Yeah, and I'll also talk about social worker. So there has been another news that social worker now has been added to priority migration skill occupation list. So I will also explain what this priority migration skill occupation list is. So 2nd of September 2020, Australian government came up with this new occupation list. Please keep in mind it doesn't replace any of the existing occupation list. They just came up and said these occupations they believe that will help to economic recovery and financial recovery from COVID-19. And for employer-sponsored visa, subclass 186, subclass 482, subclass 494, these employer-nominated visas, if your occupation is in the priority migration skill occupation list, you will be given priority. And we have seen this. We have lodged subclass 482s, 186 for these occupations, and the processing times are sometimes less than a month. So they are really quick and they are prioritizing these, and we have seen the results of this. So if you're in one of these occupations, and if you have an employer, if you're currently in Australia, or if you're offshore, if you have an Australian employer willing to sponsor you for one of these occupations, then you can get a priority processed visa. And with this visa, if you're offshore, you can travel to Australia. You don't need to wait for the travel bans to lift. Or if you're in Australia, you can get a prioritized, quickly processed visa. So these occupations are chief executive of, there were 17, now there's 18. A social worker was added to this list quite recently. Apart from social worker, there are occupations in health, engineering and construction sectors and some IT. I'll just quickly go through this list and tell you the list. Chief executive or managing director, construction project manager, mechanical engineer, general practitioner, resident medical officer, psychiatrist, medical practitioners not elsewhere classified, midwife, registered nurses in aged care, critical care, medical, mental health, and registered nurses not elsewhere classified, developer programmer, software engineer, maintenance planner. And as I said, social worker was also added. So this is for employer-nominated visas. And if you are one of them, then you do have the chance to get your visa granted quick.
So there's few questions that we've been sent through from our clients and prospective clients from YouTube and also Facebook, that we couldn't get through to them. So we thought we'll go through them during the session as well. El Sodiq, he's got a question asking, which visa allows me to move to Australia with my family to work and live in the country?
El Sadiq, that's a very good starting point. So that now you have the question. So as migration agents, now we know what you want to achieve. So that's another way of we approaching our clients. So we first ask them, okay, what is your end goal? What do you want to achieve? Because maybe one person would say, I just want to upskill myself. Another person would say, I just want to permanently live there. So depending on that, and then another person would say, I probably want to just work for a couple of years and go back. So
some
your
people
goal
want
is
their kids to come and study or expand their businesses.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they're very successful in the businesses in their home country or where they're based. They're number 1, 2 in the country in that industry, but they're now exploring what options they could have in a stable economy and growing Western country like Australia.
So now we know what your requirements. So you have a family and you want to move to Australia permanently. Now we need to look at, okay, now we know what visas you're eligible for. So we need to look at your profile to figure out which visa you will be eligible to do that. So it is a permanent visa you're looking at as your end goal, permanent residency and citizenship, but you may not be able to get there in one go. You probably have to have a pathway to get there. Depending on your qualifications and your experience, you may have to go through student visa and then pathway, or you may have to go through a business visa, or it could be an employer nominated visa. But without knowing actually what your profile is, we cannot suggest you, okay, this is the right visa for you. So that's a really good question.
Please be in touch with us.
Get in touch with us and
You
tell
got
us
all
your
the
profile.
contact
Then we will
details.
find you the right visa to achieve your end goal.
We got another question from another person. We can't see the name, but he's saying, I'm really confused. How to check my if my degree is accredited by Australia? Good
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
So it depends on which university you studied and which country. And
there is a profile called CEP, Country Education Profile. So not everybody has access to that, but we do have access to that because you need to get a subscription. And if you can get in touch with us and tell us what university and give us a transcript and a certificate, then we can check that for you. As I said, it's not available for everybody. You need to have access to that Country Education Profile, and then we can check.
Yeah. Ashok Munaga, I don't have any previous experience, but recently got an IT job. They're willing to sponsor. Is there any visa I'm eligible for?
Ashok, the first visa I can think of would be 407 training visa if you don't have other experience, because for any other employer nominated visa, you will need at least 2 years previous work experience plus a qualification. But for training visa, you don't need prior experience. So the most likely the visa that suits you will be 407 training visa.
Rupal Kanuja, subclass 188 visa in South Australia before applying to the SA government. Ask for a virtual meeting. Please tell me about that virtual meeting.
Yeah. Only South Australia has this requirement. Other states, you don't need to really visit the state before you lodge invitation. But in South Australia, before COVID, it used to be you have to physically come to Australia. But now because of COVID, they have changed their rules. Now we need to book a virtual meeting. You need to, in this meeting, you will be talking to the South Australian government, answering questions. There are a few requirements. We can help you arrange this virtual meeting. You must do this meeting before you can apply for an invitation for subclass 188A. South Australian government has always been doing this because they need to make sure that their applicants are genuine and they have a genuine intention to stay in South Australia. And this business plan and whatever they're planning to do will benefit South Australia and also will benefit the applicant, and make sure that both parties are happy before they can give an invitation. So if you're interested, we can help you arrange this meeting with South Australia.
There's a nice question from Sukhman Pal Singh. Can I get PR in Victoria for applying for 188 visa and then to 888? And he has calculated his points, came to 80 points. So 188 visa is again the business visa. It can be business or investor visa. Then 888. And his points are 80.
If your points are 80, then I would probably suggest you to apply for a different state, because Victoria has said if minimum you need 85 points, even though the Home Affairs requirement is 65 points. Victoria has a slightly higher requirement because of the demand for the program.
A lot of people want to go and operate businesses.
So in this case, I would probably suggest you to apply for a different state. You can go through the 188 and you can go through the 888 and become a permanent resident. Once you're a permanent resident or a citizen, then you're free to move anywhere in Australia.
Is there any 382 visa or 482? What visas are there for employer sponsors in IT?
Right. So the do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, you can go.
Yeah. So employee-nominated visas, temporary visas, subclass 482, and could be subclass 407, training visa. If it is permanent visas or provisional visas are subclass 494. If it's permanent residency, it's subclass 186. So subclass 407, 482, 494, 186. So they are the employer-nominated visas.
Yeah. So 407 is the basic entry-level employment visa, I would say, which does not require prior work experience. And 482, you need to have an employer who's sponsoring you, and you need to be qualified with the occupation, and also require IELTS.
Depending on the occupation and the country, but there is an English requirement in most cases. Plus, you need to have 2 years full-time equivalent work experience for that.
494 is a visa which used to be called 187 time back. So 494 visa is for people who's getting employed in regional areas outside of main cities such as Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne.
Yeah, so your workplace or your employment place has to be located in one of these regional areas for your employer to be eligible to sponsor you under 494. There is a bigger employment list available for 494. That's why sometimes it suits people where it doesn't have 482 or 186, so it has a bigger list. But for this, you need to have 3 years full-time equivalent work experience. You need to have a skilled assessment in your occupation. You need to have certain English requirement in most cases. It's a provisional visa granted for 5 years, which has a permanent residency pathway.
And last but not least, but the best in the option is the permanent pathway visa for employee nominated is 186. So if you fulfill your requirements for 482 or 494 visa, you can apply for 186 to become a permanent resident. With 186 visa, you have two streams. One is direct entry. The other one is called TRT, otherwise also called temporary resident transition visa. So if you had 3 years work experience with IELTS 6 each with a skill assessment, and you also have an employee to sponsor you. You do not have to go through the 482 pathway. If the employee agree with it, you can apply for permanent residency directly if you have those qualifications. With 186 TRT, you have to be in either 482 visa or 494 visa. And then once you fulfill the requirement, you can then apply for 186 TRT to become a permanent resident. So next questions from Texas in. Heard about a 491 visa in one of our videos. With state sponsorship, how long will the process take? How much is the success rate? Ashani, you know?
Quite hard to answer that question actually.
Let's break it down. Sponsorship.
The most states are closed, so we don't know when the states will open exactly. And once the state open, where you can apply, and that also will depend on individual cases about how long it takes. It could be how many points you have compared to the other applicants, and what is your prospects and what does your profile look like compared to the other applicants. That would decide on the time, and also the success rate will depend on all these criteria as well. The points you have, your profile, the work experience, your English, it will all depend on that compared to the other applicants.
So we got a really good question from Vedan Chandra. Can the investment visa be in the government bond? So again, bring us back into business visas. 188B. 188B is a government bond. It's a treasury bond for $1.5 million.
Yeah, so the answer is yes. It is in subclass 188 investment visa. You have to invest 1.5 million with government treasury bonds. just before you get the visa granted. You don't need to do this when you apply for the visa. You only need to do this when you're about to get the visa granted. You need to keep the money there for 4 years. And once you do that, then you'll be eligible to apply for subclass 888 for your permanent residency.
So we got a couple of online questions right there. One from Mani Singh. Hi, can I apply for visitor visa with the sponsor from India? At the moment, Mani, the borders are closed. I think in India you can apply for visitor visa, but you can't travel. So the visitor visa's got time limits as well.
Yeah, depending on who you want to visit. If you have family in Australia, then you may be able to get a visitor visa if you have immediate family. If not, it's quite tricky because the borders are closed. So yeah. I've got another question here. Atul, if the director does not stay in Australia, but he keeps manager and other people to run the business, is it okay that he may come and go? Atul, yes. So this is about business visa. If you are getting a visa granted for 4 years and 3 months, and the minimum requirement is you need to stay in Australia for 1 year in the last 2 years, just before you apply for your subclass 888. So that amount, the minimum stay requirement, either the main applicant or the secondary applicant, which is if it's husband and wife, if the main applicant is the wife, either wife or the husband will have to stay in Australia for the minimum stay requirement. You cannot fulfill that with a manager. The residency requirement, either the main applicant or the secondary applicant will have to fulfill. In most cases, our clients, we do something called a director swap. So the main applicant applies for subclass 188, but the subclass 888, we make the main applicant the secondary applicant for subclass 188. So we do a director swap, which is possible. So
subclass 888.
Yeah, for the 888, we do the director swap. The main applicant switch.
It's not an illegal thing, or it's not an inappropriate thing. It's allowed by the legislations to do so.
Yeah, and New Quality Media is asking for subclass 188 through visa processing time is the same as 188. From our experience, it's a little bit more sometimes. But again, if you have a really good business case and if you're going to bring a lot of benefits to Australia, then we can push it to try and get the visa granted quicker. But the processing time is normally the equivalent, a little bit more, because 132 is permanent residency and there are many things that they need to check.
So 132 visa is another business visa, but 132 leads you to permanent residency.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to have substantial business background to put a 132 visa. I can see Abdul Sami, you're there, and we're about to come into your question. Thank you for revisiting us. Before we can come to you, we have another question from Manikam Surendra Kumar. Seems like you have asked us a question that we couldn't come back to you during the session. So sorry, our apologies on not coming back to you. Sometimes when we finish up the session, it just some of the questions goes away. So we've been failing to keep up with some of the questions.
This question is, in business visa, once it's approved, how can we transfer the money from Sri Lanka to Australia in a legitimate way?
So this is actually not a question for us. We are not eligible or qualified to give you financial advice. We have seen our clients transferring in a legitimate manner
through the bank. So if you have an invoice that you need to pay in Australia, if you give it to your bank, normally you can transfer money, but there are limitations of how much you can transfer a year. So some of our clients, they open up a bank account. They don't need to be in Australia to open up a bank account. They can open up a bank account when they're in Sri Lanka, and they start transferring the money when they lodge the visa. So they have a couple of years to get the money that they need to invest transferred into Australia. So once they get the visa granted and they arrive in the country, they can visit a branch and get their bank account activated and access their money.
Certain banks have special advance accounts which again we're not qualified to tell you, qualified to advise you. I've seen a couple of experience lately with HSBC have advanced account or something similar, which you can talk to these banks. You can get a proper guideline from them rather than us. I think if you talk to the proper corporate bankers, they can guide you. And if you still need certain advice or guidelines, please feel free to be in touch, and we'll do our best to guide you through to the right channels. I hope that answered your question, Manikam, and sorry if you were late in responding to your message. So one of our clients, revisiting clients, Abdul Sami, we have a question from you. Do we have to do business in the same state we apply, or can we do the business elsewhere? With that
Can
question,
I answer that? Yeah.
I was so tempted to answer that, and I knew Ashani is going to jump in, but that's okay.
Abdul, to answer this question, I would like you to understand the mechanism behind the business visa. So before you can lodge a business visa, you need the state's invitation. So first thing we do is we come up with a business plan and we go to the state and tell them, hey, look, we have this great business plan. These are my points. I am very interested in your state to live and run business. So depending on that, state will give you an invitation. And that's how we lodge the visa for. So we do have a commitment to that state. And also, when you apply for your permanent residency, then again, you have to go back to the state and get the state's nomination. So I would highly recommend you to run your business in the state that you got your invitation from, and you have to stay in that state. Otherwise, you could get into trouble when you try to apply for your permanent residency, getting the nomination from the state. But then again, if you stay in that state and run that business in the state, there is nothing preventing you from running another business in another state. We have had clients where they have their primary business in the state where they got their invitation, but they have bought properties in other states. They have got other businesses in other states. So it is not restricting you to do any of that, but it's just that the invitation that you got, the state that you got their invitation from, you must stay and do your business and stay in that state unless the state is happy to release you. And the different states have different agreements, so it's quite unlikely that you will get a release from the state unless you have a compelling, compassionate reason.
And also it comes down to the nature of your business as well. The state government's main concern, or what they're looking to, is for you to have your principal place of operation happen in that sponsored state. Don't forget, you're using the state's quota to have you nominated. So they would they like you to stay in the state and keep the business happening there and operate the principal place of business there. And you're free to still operate the business elsewhere, but as long as your principal place of operation or head office is in that state. So it all depends on what's your business plan and also how you place it. We've got, and also
Abdul's got another question, right?
Last week you had
possible to go on employer-sponsored visa while we are having subclass 188 in Australia if we get a chance? Yeah, if you're eligible, subclass 188 doesn't stop you from applying for subclass 482 or 186 or any other visa. As long as you're eligible for some other visa, you can lodge that. Abdul, I'm interested to talk to you, so maybe send us an email, reception@sirus.com.au, and we will get in touch with you. We will set up a meeting and I will talk to you personally to see if we can help you with any of the visas.
In relation to your question about if you applied for a 188A visa in March 2020 and expecting to get a result by June 2021, hard to tell with the current processing times. I would say a few more months more.
Not sure. It's really difficult to tell.
Yeah. So
you're sort of a waiting game.
You'll be expected to have a response between June and December next year, 2021. So hard to tell. Akshay Joshi, subclass 482 visa management consultant, has applied on 10th of July. However, we have not heard about anything from immigration authorities till now. By when I can expect an answer? I'm staying in Mumbai for a visa. 10th of July. Depending on your occupation as well, actually.
Yeah, it's
management
not on the priority list as well. So I don't think it will be given priority.
Anytime
even if you
soon.
get the visa granted, it will be hard for you to travel to Australia. So you probably have to wait a while for
until
this
the borders
to happen.
open and everything else gets started off. We've got few questions from Facebook side of it. Krishan Nugara. There's a question about what about 491? All the requirements done 1 year experience in NT.
Yeah, depending on your occupation, NT is currently open for some occupations. You should be able to apply if you're eligible.
Ali Ahmed, hi, how are you doing? Good, thank you. Thanks for joining us. I'm doing business in South Africa, but even I want to do business in Australia if I have chance. Of course, Ali, given you fulfill the requirement, there's quite a few streams that you might be eligible with. It depends on your age, your current turnovers, your business experience and investment experience. So please be in touch.
Get in touch with us. We will look at your eligibility depending on your the certain criteria, and we can suggest you. So it is certainly possible, and Australia is promoting that.
Currently, there's so many options and so many categories that you can look into. Certainly be in touch with us. Again, as Ashani said earlier, we put all our contact details in both Facebook and also YouTube. So if you send an email to reception@sirus.com.au, we should be able to be in touch and organize an appointment with you. Jatin Singh, we've got a question from you, but really hard to understand unless Ashani, do you?
I don't know. What is the scenario of Montreal College? Can you please say something? I'm sorry, Jatin, we are not aware of any such scenario, so we cannot really comment on that.
Abdul Sami.
You already answered that question.
We got it.
Yeah. All right, guys, I think we are coming to an end of another session. Thank you so much for watching us on YouTube and Facebook. We are trying to bring the latest updates to you every week on Australian migration. So any questions, send it to us. We will try to answer them in our live sessions on a Thursday at 4 o'clock Brisbane time.
And if you haven't subscribed us in YouTube, please give us a favor to hit the subscribe button, and it'll help us to join you and also notify you when we put up a new video out or a live session out. The same goes with Facebook as well. If you haven't liked our page yet, please like us, so you will be notified as soon as we program a new event or news or an article in Facebook. So it's, again, nice to have you all. Christmas is coming up, holidays coming up. It's almost the end of the school holidays in Australia in a couple of days.
We'll probably be doing one session before Christmas,
and
then we'll come back in January.
We're expecting to be off from 18th of December till 4th of January for Christmas holidays. If you're expecting to submit any applications or have any questions, please be in touch. Sorry we couldn't talk much about Global Talent Visa today, but maybe next week we'll have a chat with you on Global Talent Visa. And there are a few things we would like to update you with. And have you a blessed weekend, and hope to see you back on next Thursday at 4 p.m. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.